soften your whole body. Releasing your neck, allowing the crown of the head to float upward. Soften around the eyes, release your jaw. Relax your throat, the base of your tongue. Releasing the shoulders. The very tops of the shoulders, when they soften, they release downward and outward. Release the front of the shoulder where it connects to the sternum, to the ribs, to the collarbone here. All of this releases outward so that your chest opens outward. The shoulder that connects to the back, to the upper spine, releases. The shoulder blades soften down the back, away from the spine and outward, as well as the base of the shoulder, below the ribs, softening, again, so that this space opens, softens outward toward the elbow, toward the fingers, so the shoulders soften and lengthen outward. Feeling your chest settle comfortably. As it empties, a sense of warmth settles down toward the belly. Your lower back releases. Your tailbone opens and settles. If you're standing or sitting, relax your glutes further. If you're on a chair, like mine, allow the weight to fall just in front of the sitting bones so that your legs can be free and soft. Ideally, you're choosing a chair that's a little bit higher than your knees. That allows your back to relax more easily. With every exhalation, allow your whole body to soften further. With every inhalation, allow a deepening of the stillness. And then again, exhale and soften. Song and Jing. Releasing your breath, not trying to control or force the breath, but releasing any obstructions to the breath. The breath flows into space that you make, and we make space by releasing and softening through. Similarly with your mind, if you notice distractions arise, which may happen to one or two of you, don't hold your mind in the center. Don't force your mind back into focus. Rather, release the distraction. The distractions themselves are another kind of tension of the mind, kind of grabbing and controlling of your reality. Instead, simply soften whatever it is that's reaching toward those distractions and allow your awareness to naturally settle back into the present moment. Did your mom make it on?
I don't know. I messaged her.
Okay.
But I haven't heard that. She's at work right now. So.
Okay. Since it looks like we don't have any brand new people today, let's go ahead and move right into the set. Warming your hands if they're not warm already. Always touching yourself with warm hands.
Is Max not new?
Max is not new.
Oh, okay.
No. Hands resting on top of the head. Gentle circles there. Max is new to the live, but has been following on Patreon.
Gotcha.
"36 circles in both directions. This is the Bai Hui point, the point if you were to drag your fingers toward the top of your ears, more or less on the crown of your head, gently circling. This kind of pressure is the kind that allows the skin of the scalp to circle gently. You're not trying to scrub over the surface. Since I know that some of you are Chinese medicine practitioners, this is roll, circling, not swole, rubbing. And in general, for any of you that might know some of the Mandarin or the traditional Chinese, please feel free to ask, and I'll always include that as well. Sometimes that makes it more clear than speaking in my poor California English.
Chris is on.
Chris is here. Welcome.
Hello.
Softening down. And then maybe it's worth, because I wanted to answer a question that somebody on here asked earlier about the quality of touch. So just a 2-minute misdirection here for a moment to explain. We have touch that if we touch the skin itself moves. Because again, we're only moving just below the surface of the skin. We're not trying to press down into the musculature or deeper to the bone. Instead, we are moving on the surface to move the tissue that's hiding just beneath and just between all of the more obvious tissues. Sometimes we circle gently like this. Sometimes we move briskly back and forth to warm the space. There's many different kinds of touch. Just in the same way that there's many different kinds of tea. This is my excuse to drink some tea. Even though they're all made from this same Camellia sinensis plant, green teas, white teas, yellow teas, these are all the same plant, but cooling in nature because they're prepared differently. And then this is a pu'er tea, black teas or red teas, oolong teas. Those are warming in nature, and each one moves a little bit differently in the body. And it's the same with our touch, that the same quality of touch, but by adjusting how we go about it, the kind of connection we're making, they become cooling or warming, moving or nurturing and consolidating. And for each of these points, we want to emphasize a slight difference. For most of these points through here that we'll be doing, they're the warming, invigorating quality. So really take the time to allow that heat to soak into the channels and to invigorate and move these channels. And then in certain places, I'll mention more of a warming, gentle, consolidating quality, and we'll emphasize that. So I hope that answers that question.
Was that in response to Chris's question in the chat? Did you see that one?
I can't see the questions now.
Oh, yeah, he had asked if you could repeat what you said about the touch, whether it was the movement where we press or
Great.
glide.
He asked it in an email, that's why.
Okay.
For those of you that have questions that can't always get them through in this little chat format, always feel free to email me, send an audio, send a video, message in a bottle, and I will do my best to respond. Send it by owl, that's the modern way. Scrubbing the back of the head. This is that warming, invigorating quality. Not pressing hard, but adjusting the quality of your touch to increase that yang quality. Emphasizing also a scrubbing across this line here at the base of the skull, gallbladder 20. And then just below, rubbing the neck, sides of the neck, as well as that point at the base of the neck, base of that large bone, C7. The dew 14 point, the great hammer. You want to warm and invigorate this entire area. You'll do this on both sides. Take your time. And especially if you find yourself outside in the wind and cold, please do just pause and take a little time to do this throughout the day. You might find that it helps you stay healthy. And then again, warming the palms. The warmth soaking in around, behind the eyes, releasing any gathered tension there. Even your brain relaxes, quieting the mind. Ironing off 3 times. And then gently massaging those points alongside the nose. Large intestine 20. Allowing the space to open. The point is called welcoming fragrance. So you may find that as you allow your awareness to sink into the space and it softens, that your breath deepens and your senses are enhanced. And then very gently scrubbing up and down, warming and spreading this area. And then circling around the eyes. Again, I'm doing about 36 of these. In the original set, some of these go 100 times in both directions, some of these movements. But that wouldn't allow us to stay within this 90-minute window. And so please do add extra in places that you need the attention. And just take your time. It should feel wonderful. Both directions. And then using the inside of the pointer finger, massaging that space between the eyebrows as well as the ends of the eyebrows themselves. Let's point urinary bladder 2 here. You'll find a little divot in the end of the eyebrow. You might find it very pleasant to release that space. Again, the intent and the emphasis here is to spread and open these spaces, to warm them and invigorate them. These areas become compressed and often filled with our daily emotions, shall we say. So we want to help relieve and set them free. And then drawing across the eyebrows, pressing just enough to help circulate the fluid beneath. Just as a reminder, if you ever need to take a break, to walk around, to stretch, or just to drop your arms because your arms are becoming heavy, please feel free to stop. We're practicing gentleness, loving compassion toward ourselves, not force and control. So if you find yourself having to force yourself, find a different way through. Just as a gentle reminder. The fingertips, softening the outside of that orbital line here. Soft space between the eyebrow and the end of the eye. The Tai Yang point. 36 times in both directions. If you tend toward migraines, you may move your fingers around a little bit and find sensitive or places that feel thickened and maybe slightly numb, and spend time also opening them. After a lifetime of martial arts and being punched in the head, I have a lot of damage. I've cracked my skull in the past, and so I have time to heal myself before problems arise in the future. I want to take the time for that. And then moving down to the edge of the jaw, this corner of the jaw, softening there. Maintain good posture, comfortable position for your neck and your shoulders. You allow your jaw to fall open a little bit as you release this area. And then working that line just in front of the ear, again, allowing the jaw to hang open slightly to open that space even further. Gently massaging that point. .36 in both directions, or more if you'd like. There's several very useful points in this area that we can stimulate.
Is the jaw massage using the pinning type motion?
That's right, where you're skin is moving, you're not rubbing over the skin. But for the next movement where we rub between the two, we will be swalt. That's this like friction style movement where we're adding heat. For that one, we will be moving up and down over the skin rather than moving the skin itself. And I do want to add one extra point here because there's somebody who was asking about it. Just if I was to fold my ear forward and find the little spot beneath my earlobe, I know not everybody has earlobes, but the space just beneath the ear, behind the jaw. For some people, that's very tight and very painful. And this is an area, especially if you've had a broken jaw or a lot of jaw tension, or perhaps your jaw is misaligned. You can often release this through this same gentle, soft request to open. You want to be slow and gentle, like growing a garden. It doesn't help to try to hurry the plants along by pulling on the top of the plants to make them grow faster. Instead, you gently nourish the soil, you add water, you protect them from anything harmful. You give them what they need and they grow on their own. This is the same way that we open and soften. This morning, my instructor used a Chinese term, mama lai, like slowly, slowly it comes. You want to have this quality of patient, consistent application of love, just like in any relationship. Now, that one we will normally skip, but if you find that that is helpful for you back there, please feel free to add it every time you do this set. Moving from the jaw to that front corner of the ear, this little fun cartilage flap here. During those movements, you also want to be massaging behind the ears. If your fingers are long and it's comfortable, you can reach this line around the ear as well. We were talking about the gallbladder channel before that reaches down to the foot. It also reaches all the way up here. And so we want to spend some time warming and invigorating this space. So the next series, since you won't be able to hear me, scrubbing the ears with the palms. You can massage the inner ear, spiraling outward with your fingers perhaps. You can massage and rub the edges of the ears with your fingertips, warming them all the way down to the earlobes, or whatever version that you have, tugging on the ears a little bit. You can flick your ears if that feels comfortable. And at the very end, we will compress the ears and then tap the fingers against the back of the head. and if you can hear me, feel that the sense of warmth that poured into your ears is now flowing back outward. If you didn't quite warm them enough, perhaps do a few more until you feel as though your ears are radiating heat. This is very healing for them. Let's do a movement that touches this space below the nose, as well as the space just below the bottom lip. You can pull in your lips just a little bit to get them out of the way. You'll brush your hand over your mouth this way, as well as with your small finger rubbing that space between your eyebrows and across your forehead this way. Both hands changing. And then warming your hands. We're going to circle over the face 36 times in both directions, gently. If you find that your skin is irritated after rubbing your face, you're probably pushing too hard. Please be gentle, especially if you have very calloused hands. Emphasizing a soothing outward direction, softening your face open. And then pulling down the sides of the neck. We have lots of channels, basically lots of movement of vitality that moves over the face and the head. And so it's very helpful for the whole body to work these areas. It's not just for vanity. But if you ever learn aesthetic forms of Qigong and massage, these movements are in there. So this is good for the complexion. But don't let vanity be your reason for doing it. But if it does encourage you to practice, then I'm all for it.
I was worried that I would break out really badly when
from touching your face?
Started doing this because my skin is so sensitive. But it's only happened a couple times.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. That's good. If you ever have suggestions of how to prevent that, things that you've learned.
Oh, gosh, yeah, everybody's skin is so different.
That's right.
Washing your hands.
Yeah, make sure your hands are clean and that you don't push too hard. If your hands are very calloused, be gentle because you might be abrasive to your skin. And if people have individual experiences that they'd like to share, please feel free to include them so that other people can learn from them. Soften all the way down to this space around and under the collarbone. Remember that the shoulder, which we were talking about earlier, it only connects to one place on this central skeletal position. All of this is free except for one spot right here where it touches. The rest of this is free, skeletally speaking. And so this can become compressed. A lot of tension and pain, stagnation can occur here. So take the time to help spread that out. And then when you're ready, pulling down. Don't allow anything to settle into the upper body, sinking down to the navel. This can also be very soothing for people that deal with anxiety. Anxiety is qi rushing upward, filling the space. And so by settling things down intentionally, allowing that fire to descend, to warm your belly, this is very good for you. In closing, settling the qi down, filling that space between the navel and the spine. A few breaths of meditation. Two things. First of all, I know a number of you will do these practices for a little bit and then take a break and then come back to them. Then it's moments like these that you can pause. You want to wait until you've sunk down here before you pause and you drink a bit of tea. Don't wait and pause while your qi is all up. Instead, take the time to settle it, then take a break. Much better for your health. Also, when it comes to storing qi, this stillness, this settling quality, this quiet moment, these are the same things as storing. Storing also means like hitting the save button on your computer. By taking pause and letting your system take note of the change that's just happened, it's far more likely to maintain this level of openness and good health. If you just move on from it, your nervous system just functions and keeps going the same way it's been doing. But when you pause and your system looks around and says, oh, this feels much nicer. Oh, the breath is easier. Then things begin to change. It's the still point that allows things to change, not all the doing. Moving from there, down the arms, softening the front of the shoulder. Even in this movement, we're emphasizing this opening outward direction.
Dell's here.
Dell is here. Welcome, Dell. All these great people in these classes.
Thank you for he's on break and just wanted to say hi. And he says, thank you for continuing this glorious 100-day Qigong. You are doing God's work, my friend.
Thank you, my brother.
Yay, good to see you, Del.
Yeah, we have such a cool community that comes on here. Makes this entire process worthwhile just by itself. Releasing the base of the shoulder, which is all down here. When the shoulder freezes and becomes less mobile, it's not just that we want to release this one joint. The shoulder is all of this that we've been talking about. And I'm going to keep emphasizing it as we practice. We released the front of the shoulder here. Now we're releasing the base of the shoulder. And a little later, we'll do even further down the ribs. The top of the shoulder. All of this that connects up here. When this is tight, your shoulder freezes. Warm and soften these spaces. Eventually, we'll have somebody come on here with me and I'll show you how to help your practice partner release their upper back. It's a little bit more difficult to do on your own. Gentle, warm circles. Warming the joint. And continuing into the whole upper arm. All the way around. So as per Chris's question, this is a little bit of a mixture of both, where the skin is moving beneath your hand and there's some brisk movement over the surface. And you'll notice that your movement intuitively adjusts as you become better at it. Perhaps, as it is common for a lot of people, there's a lot of cold and stagnation back here behind the elbow, or if you're a tennis player, around this area. And maybe you'll just allow your hand to gently circle without invigorating it too much because it needs a little extra love. Or if it feels cold in the way that it's just needing to heat up, you might find yourself doing this. Not pushing too hard. But all of these qualities you want to allow to appear as you get to know your body more, as long as you feel like you can trust your intent to be loving and gentle and not to try to force change into your body, because that never goes well, if you haven't noticed. Large intestine 11. Gentle circles. Warming and softening that space. And down below that, further down on the arm, large intestine 11, 10, 9, this whole line here, emphasizing a movement that helps qi travel down toward the fingertips. And then the inside of the arm, lung 5. Again, for you sports people, perhaps you can also work slightly on the inside of the elbow here. Gentle, comfortable circles. Triple warmer 5. Pericardium 6. The inner and outer gates. This can be more of that warming, gentle circle where the skin is moving, rather than the brisk, invigorating. Friction is the word I was hunting for. No friction necessary. And then similarly with this point here, large intestine 4, small intestine 3, gentle circles, sinking in a little bit in order to stimulate the point, but not enough to compress the musculature and stop qi flow. Awakening that area and moving qi down toward the fingertips. And then the points here, small intestine line, heart line, just beneath the bone here. For those of you who do acupuncture, we're reaching toward the points beneath the tendon on this side rather than in front of the tendon on this side. Just as a way of stimulating the structure more than trying to reach the points. Warm, gentle circles, grasping and releasing. Helping circulation reach to the fingertips. Moving to the other side. For my friends who are experiencing winter right now up in the northern hemisphere, you might find that your hands become painful in the cold weather, or your feet. And there are some wonderful herbal soaks that you can find online or from your local Chinese medicine distributor. Very worthwhile getting and simply allowing your hands or your feet to soak and warm. It helps to warm and move the channels. Very gentle, very nourishing, especially this time of year. And you might find that it's very helpful if you experience a lot of stiffness and aching in the cold. I know that's a common thing for people. I just gave as a gift a big bag of herbs to somebody dealing with that, and he already took a bath in it, which wasn't my recommendation, but it really helped.
Oh, whole bath.
A whole bath.
I was wondering what that would feel like.
I don't know. That wasn't what I recommended, but he's an extreme sort of guy. There are certain areas of your body you don't necessarily want to invigorate with herbs like that, but as long as it helped.
So when we're doing this movement,
Uh-huh.
I notice a lot of tension in the opposite shoulder, the shoulder opposite the arm that we're rubbing. And I wonder, I'm noticing that your elbow is a little more elevated than mine.
Oh.
When I'm coming across.
Mm-hmm.
If
Elevated this way?
Versus, yeah, I'm wondering if that would make a difference, if I elevated my elbow a little bit or.
Whatever helps you release your shoulder blade this way.
Okay.
Some of that is just, of course, the structure across here.
Yeah.
There are some people doing this because if they have larger breasts, maybe they have to reach across this way or shape their body differently. If your lats have a different shape, you have to adjust how you reach across your body. The question is about how far to lift your elbow to help this shoulder relax while you're working across your body. And that's a really difficult question. The most comfortable answer I can give, of course, is to make sure that your shoulder releases, and that, especially if you're practicing with the Qigong, do the practices that help to release your shoulder blade down your back. People's shoulder blades tend to be frozen on their back, so there's very little movement this way. So as their hands come up, you want your shoulder blades to descend down. What you normally see in people is their hands come up and the shoulders roll forward. And that, of course, adds a lot of tension. But instead, if I reach across and my elbow moves this way, my shoulder blade can descend down. And in fact, it's the descending of my shoulder blade that lifts my hand up. So I didn't actually have to move my arm at all. Boing. And then I just do that. And so there's very little shoulder tension. But it's very difficult to answer because everyone's body is so different. So the best we can do is soften as much as we can, find the way.
Thank you.
Or have a friend do it for you. Gently warming this area. Moving down. And similarly, since I was on the subject of talking of warming herbs and warming teas, there are some wonderful traditional Chinese medicine oils and liniments that you can use on your shoulders if they're extra tight, or any tight joints. You want to get the kind that works well for your body, because you can have pain from a number of different sources. You may need herbs that are warming, you may need herbs that are cooling, that are healing or invigorating. Some formulations may irritate your skin, some may soothe your skin. So you do want to get the right mixture. Few of them are dangerous, so you can just try a few and see which ones help. But they can be very worthwhile as an investment to help soften your joints, to release your musculature, and to make you smell really interesting when you get into an elevator. And then softening the very center here, inner and outer gate. Soothing these points. There are many people that have pain in this area, and it becomes so tight and inflamed and irritated that the only thing that they can do is go to a doctor and get the membrane that we're working on through here cut to release some of that pressure so that there's more space for it to swell up. But there is also the way of calming and reducing damage and swelling in that area to relieve the pressure rather than simply trying to cut open the body and make more space. And so you want to have this feeling of not pushing in there and working on it, but instead to soften it open, to change the way the tissues are interacting in there. Thank you. Thank you. Never gets old.
Never gets old.
Same thing here. Your hand goes up, your shoulder blade sinks down the back. So this is just enough pressure to help circulate the fluids beneath the skin. If you tend to have edema in the hands, you can emphasize recirculation back up toward the center. If your hands tend to be cold and stiff, we're helping qi flow out toward them. Closing. Allowing everything to sink down. Your awareness collects in that space behind the navel. Let go of the tension around your breath. Soften your legs. Moving down the body. And again, in some ways, this is the front of the shoulder. So you want to warm these tissues and allow this to soften open. Relieving the solar plexus. Gentle circles. Soothing circles. center of the belly, Rin 12. The point before was around Rin 14, 15, 17 in the center of the chest, but across several points on the body.
Chris asks, is the solar plexus one a pin?
Oh, mostly a pin, a little bit of rub, but mostly whatever feels very good to you. We're trying to allow warmth to sink into that space, to soothe the space. And especially over the shirt, it can be a little nice to have a little bit of free movement over the skin. But if you find it irritating, especially if there's a lot of chi there, maybe people don't like a lot of movement, so it might feel better to simply pin it against the skin and make gentle circles that way. But that will be whatever helps you soften the most.
Thank you for asking that, Chris. I've kind of just been doing whatever felt right.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about the two.
No, but whatever feels right is a really good advice. And of course, that can be difficult because one of the difficulties with intuitive practice is that people's intuition can be trained toward unhealthy things in the same way that it can be difficult for people to take up intuitive eating if all they know how to do is crave sugar or they crave emotionally driven foods and things. But once their system heals and balances enough, then it can be easy to listen to your body, and when your body says, oh, I'd like to eat this, or I need to drink more water. But you have to clear yourself enough of that. And similarly, we're trying to connect with our bodies enough to listen to its voice that we have so long ignored. When it says a little bit more of this, a little bit less, try this. That information comes through, but we do want to learn to listen. The skill of listening in any Daoist practice is primary. And listening comes through stillness. And maybe I should add one other thing. Stillness does not mean holding still. Does anybody know what the definition of stillness is? Mel does. Want to share?
ZhiCheng Shifu says that it's the disinhibition of movement.
Yeah.
The free flow, allowing movement to release.
That's right. Stillness is the complete release of everything holding you in place. So that your system that has been frozen and held is allowed to settle like water. And so even when water is flowing downhill, water is still. Unless it's ice.
Movement and stillness.
Movement and stillness.
And stillness and movement.
That's right. So cultivating this freedom, releasing obstructions, that allows our system to settle into true stillness, true earth. Warming around the navel, warming the navel itself, stomach 25, stomach 15. You can reach around to some good kidney points. You want to soften this whole line. Releasing your legs, being free. Softening that space in front of the inguinal crease. You might find this easier to do lying down. Emphasizing a downward direction sending qi down to your feet. The rest of the movements are emphasizing this flow downward toward the feet. And again, for people who might be experiencing a menstrual time, then you might want to spend extra time warming this area, helping to circulate qi through here. Any space, depending on where you are in your phase, in that cycle, you might want to spend more time moving qi in preparation, or if you've already started that period flow, warming and circulating, helping to relieve this movement downward, or just going to sleep if that's important too. I found chocolate to be very therapeutic, but please do take your time and be gentle depending where you are in that cycle. And if you have other questions, of course, feel free to ask me here or privately. And circle around. Shoulders stay released, softening the front of the shoulders, allowing the shoulder blades to sink up and down. Emphasizing this downward movement along these channels here, alongside the spine. The center of the movement is around a point called urinary bladder 23. This one emphasizing an upward movement over the Mingmen, that point just opposite the navel and the spine. Massaging the tailbone itself. If you're not on camera, you can place your fingers on your skin and circulate all the way down to the tip of the tailbone and then back up. Emphasizing again a downward warming direction, sending warmth in. And the very top of the glute, beneath the line of the pelvic crest here, this iliac crest, just beneath that. For those of you following with the acupuncture points, this is not on the list. It is above the gallbladder 30 point, the Huantiao point, sometimes called Shang Huantiao, this upper jumping circle. And then below in the very center of the glute, if you've had a hip replacement, you may want to spend extra time in this area, as well as time that may, on the spot that may feel sore on this part of the hip that's a little bit more easy to reach. Warming and circulating. You want the sense of the heat penetrating into these points, and we're creating movement that travels down the legs. So for people with a hip replacement, you may find right in through here. Circulating, pushing down. And for everybody else, more in the center of the thigh, halfway down the knee, toward the knee. Spine soft and upright. And that space just on the outside of the knee, above the knee. Warming, sending qi down toward the feet as you circle. So again, for Chris, this is a half and half. You're half circulating, allowing the skin to circle around that point, loosening up the skin and the fascia beneath there, but also warming and briskly invigorating this point with the intention going downward. That sounds like a lot. It really can become easy and intuitive with practice. And then the inside of the leg, just above the knee on the inside, this sea of qi point, and along the inside of the thigh here. Please sit in whatever way is comfortable. Spend time warming, nourishing this area. And then, menu pains. Stomach 36. Just on the outside of the shin bone here, on this outer part, and the center of this musculature running alongside the shin, the tibia, right at the top, about a hand's breadth below the kneecap. You want to warm and nourish that whole area. The emphasis is upon allowing warmth and qi to soak into that point, and secondarily, to send warmth down toward the feet through that channel. If you'd like to, at the same time, there's a wonderful point on the inside, spleen 9, just at the head of the same shin bone along the inside. There's a little soft spot you might find your thumb sinks into, and you can work on both the same. Chin is the same, to warm and nourish these channels. Remember to sit and move in a way that is comfortable and does not add tension to your body. And then gallbladder 34, this point on the outside of the leg, again from the knee. You can find the head of this bone. And then a little further down, you find another bump, which is the head of a bone on the inside of the leg. Make a little triangle downward from these two heads here. You'll find it's just a little bit outside and above of the last point we were doing. And the soft spot there. Take some practice. Did you find it?
I'm not sure. I think I have to figure out to show me.
I will happily show you. So rubbing that spot with your fingers, emphasizing this warming, circulating quality, especially circulating here. And again, if you'd like, you can include that spleen 9 point. Again, just because I know some of you are experiencing a menstrual cycle at the moment. Another good spot to include, this is spleen 9, the last point I was talking about, just below the base of the knee, and this nice hole here. If I go down a little bit, about the distance of my hand, you'll find another little hole that your fingers fall into, and it's probably quite sore. You can apply pressure to that while doing this gallbladder 34 point, or just by itself, and that may be very helpful for this period discomfort that you have. Warming and nourishing, not trying to irritate it or push too hard. Not necessary. And then that space beneath the knees, bladder 40. And I'm just letting my thumb do a little extra work on top here. But the emphasis is upon that space between the tendons and the crease of the knee. Also softening those tendons back there. I was asked if they're bones. Nope. And if they feel like bones, you definitely want to keep relaxing. It is amazing how soft and pliable the body can become as you warm it and let it relax. When everything's pulled tight all the time and holding on for dear life, then the body becomes a certain way. What we are doing is transforming that process. Eating, allowing this all to warm and to become soft. Now, circling around the knees. I like to start by going down the outside, up the inside. And because I love this one so much, let's do it 60 times in both directions. Feel free to do it more or to focus on other spots if you need them more. While we do this, let me show you how to not do it. Notice that my back is straight and I'm simply flexing at my hips. Softening long. Don't drop your head. Don't round your shoulders forward. Don't round your lower back or sit onto your spine as you try to reach your knees. Don't hyperextend and try to pull down and strain yourself further. Find a way to be comfortable. Release your shoulders and gently ease toward your knees. And again, I'm aware that people with different body types, different stages of bodies, different stages of life, our bodies do different things. And so we want to find out how to work with the way our bodies work. And so please do be gentle and create this movement as best you can without adding trauma into the system. Both directions. The point is not to do it in the way that I do with my body type. The point is to do it the way that you do it, following the principles of openness and softness and ease. And then a few returns to the original direction, allowing the warmth of the hands to soak into the knees. Should feel really nice. And then raking up with your fingertips, pulling upward, sinking in deep and creating just enough friction as though you're trying to pull up the tissue that's just under the skin, stretching it out toward the knees. You can do it on the outside of the leg, you can do it more toward the inside of the leg, but especially on top of the tibia itself. Wonderful. And let's pause again just for a moment. Close. Let your awareness sink into that space beneath your palms, as though the heat wants to sink all the way in toward your spine. good to include one of these closing movements every 20 minutes or so throughout the set. Again, I include this just because I know some of you are taking regular breaks. These are those moments to take the breaks. When you're ready, moving into this bladder 57 point in the back of the knee in that nice V line, this bifurcation point here. Right at the very top of that angle, sinking into the space in the center of the calf. Not pushing too hard, but do add enough force to allow yourself to sink beneath the top level of tissue into the space beneath, and then work your way down, warming and softening that Achilles. And again, if this feels like a steel cable or is very uncomfortable, then be gentle and allow it to start to become flexible and alive again. Again, especially if you're somebody who finds yourself wearing high heels very often, this can become foreshortened and tight. And at the same time, if you'd like to work this musculature in front near the shin, you can do both at the same time, depending on the size of your hands and your legs. But do warm and relieve any tension here, sending things down to the feet. And then plucking and grasping across the calf itself. Finding any areas that may feel especially hard and allow them to soften as you ease them open, as though you're separating the tissues slightly. Be gentle. And then warming this point just above the ankle, this whole line all the way to the space below the ankle, the inner ankle. Spleen 6. San Yin Jiao. There's 3 channels crossing here. All of these tissues join down at this point. The ankle wants to pull up through the tissues to this point. So we warm it, soften it like butter. Soften it like taffy beneath our hands.
Chris says, friendly shout out to Max, best flautist in the West.
Oh, I didn't realize that she played the flute. How wonderful.
My sister plays the flute.
She does play the flute. Chris plays every instrument under the sun. Steph, who I don't think is here, is also a musician. And then as well, once this area feels warm and soft, and again, for people who might be working through a menstrual cycle, spend extra time here, especially if it feels tender. Gently open and stimulate those points, and you may find them relieving for a lot of your process. And then warming the feet, sending Qi down to the toes, bottom of the foot, sides of the foot, top of the foot, between these 2 tendons. And similarly, responding to a specific question, if you find that your tendons are just impossibly tight and gripped all the time, your ligaments and sinews in general, they may grow tight. Your fascial layer may fold and layer and turn into a kind of armor over your body. We want to not force it open, but to warm and gently coax them to release it's different. If you happen to know the point, you can grasp gallbladder 41 here on the other side of the foot. Softening and warming until it feels done. And then and again, if this is painful and uncomfortable for your hip, please don't sit this way. Find a different way to release. Softening and warming the center of the calf, the musculature all the way on the outside, this whole line. Easing open the Achilles. By now, your hands should feel extra soft because you've been communicating softness to them and through them this whole time, hopefully. Now you may notice your hands feeling warm and slightly moist from good circulation. Chinese call this quality ru, and it's a very healthy, warm space. And you want to communicate and allow that to soak into your tissues.
We have a question. Why are the shins so brittle?
Brittle?
Mm-hmm.
Which part of the shin? The shin bone? I might be misunderstanding what you're referring to.
Maybe you can assume the bone. Or not.
Well,
He says yes.
if the bones are becoming brittle themselves, then that's usually a kind of weakening of the bone structure. In Chinese medicine, we would call it a weakening of the essence. If we're talking about brittleness in the sense of people who injure themselves from running long distance, that's often a mixture of a weakness of the essence, a weakening of the bones in general, and an over-exercise, poor movement habit, this kind of perfect storm. If you're talking about brittleness in the sense of how painful and fragile the lower legs can become, we have this idea in Chinese medicine, but also it's discussed in traditional Western medicine, that we tend to age from the feet up. So we want to keep our feet warm and robust and healthy and strong, because that aging, that brittleness tends to creep up the legs, and we slowly lose our ability to move around, to generate movement, and to heal. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what you mean by brittle, but I think in general, this quality of becoming weakened and very fragile is a quality of this tendency to not nourish ourselves. Of course, some of it just happens as we get old and our resources dwindle. But then it's even especially important to take the time to be gentle and to nourish our body with what resources we have. Because one of our resources is compassion, loving touch, gentleness, settled intent. And those we know are also healing. And of course, rest, good sleep, good food, comfortable breathing, good company like you. Warming the feet all the way to the toes. Keeping your breath comfortable. I know I hear at least one of you holding your breath out there.
He says, I meant the bones specifically, but your expanded answer was way better.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. If you want, you can, keeping your knees slightly flexed, tap your feet onto the floor. Especially if you have neighbors down below you and you're in an apartment, this is a great way to get community involvement.
Not sure how loving it is.
Not particularly loving. I recommend trying it at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want to meet your neighbors. Don't tell them it was me. Ah. Gosh, such a nice day. Again, sitting in any way that feels comfortable to you. You might find yourself more comfortable lifted onto cushions, sitting on the edge of your bed or your chair. Find a way to make this comfortable and open. Oh, and I did want to answer one question about hamstrings that came in as well, that there are two common ways that hamstrings are shortened through posture, not through nervous system. And I'll stand, I'll be a little bit off camera, but here's my hamstrings back here, attaching from here to up into here. If my hip is tilted forward, if my hips are pelvis like a fishbowl filled with water and I pour the water in front and my hips tilt forward, this part comes up and the distance between here and here is lengthened. And that forces my hamstrings to be pulled long, and they're stretched and usually very tight. And so that automatically, just by standing this way, they can be pulled to the limit of their ability to move. And so then I sit down and I try to move in a way that asks them to be pulled further, and it's impossible. So the healing of that is to soften everything back here that is pulling this forward so that my tailbone can settle and it allows the length of my hamstrings to return to normal. Another common way for that to happen is the opposite. I have too much tension here, maybe some hip damage, and so I'm forced under. And my back is like this. Especially if I'm sitting all day, this can happen. And so now this is pulled under. My hamstrings are now shorter because this is shortened this way. My hamstrings are shorter, and now they can become tight and congealed. They can become damaged because they're like this, and they're moving like this all the time. And again, the cure for this isn't to try to stretch my hamstrings, but to soften the hips so that my pelvis returns to a neutral condition. So the pressure allows this to re-lengthen into a more comfortable position, more biomechanically available position. So in both of those cases, the cure for those tightened hamstring positions is not to pull on them more through stretching, but to correct posture and to soften from the lower back out. And that's part of what we're trying to do here with these whole body movements that engage this interconnection down to the feet. And so the hamstrings soften long, but not in isolation. They soften long with a movement through the whole body. So let's make these gentle circles. Circling with your toes, your knees rolling in and out, circling on that point at the base of the hips.
So it's an APT or PPT fault, but instead of stretching the tight and strengthening the weak muscles, we soften them.
That's right. Yeah. So he was saying that it's not an anterior, a forward tilt or a backward tilt, but rather we release everything that's forcing it to tilt and forcing everything into a poor position, and we release it through letting go. And then the tissues get to return to a natural shaping and position. They then heal. And now we can become soft, and so the tissues themselves can open without ever having to go through this process of tearing them open again. And again, a body that is shaped through that kind of force is different than one shaped through this gentle softening and reconditioning, transforming of the tissues. Both directions if you hadn't already switched. And moving to the lengthening of the kidney channel, softening open, very gently lifting up, falling forward. Again, settling through your hips rather than falling through your back. Pulling up, reaching with your toes and your hands, pulling up, lengthening to the kidneys, softening your toes, lengthening upward again. Keep your hips and your thighs soft as you fall forward, pulling up, reaching down. Quads are soft. Keep your spine long, your neck long as you fall forward. Moving only as far as feels comfortable. Your breath is comfortable, allowing breath to flow in, opening the body, and exhale comfortably out of your mouth as you reach down. Softening your spine, shaking the pillar. Crown of the head continues to be released upward. And then letting go of that shaking. It can be useful to spend a couple of moments lying on your back as well. So if you have the availability for that, lying comfortably, letting your whole body spread open. You can allow your hands to rest on your belly or on your gua, your inguinal crease here, or just falling to the sides depending on your body shape. Breath is comfortable into the abdomen. Your neck is soft. If you tend to have lower back discomfort, of course, it's useful to put a bolster or some pillows beneath your knee. This helps your lower back to soften. You may find it helpful to have a pillow beneath your head, pillow beneath your elbows. And when you practice this on your own, make sure that you are warm and comfortable. You can put a blanket over yourself and lay here for several minutes as you let go, noticing this warmth and opening through your whole body. And then when you feel settled, roll onto your side and comfortably and easily sitting up. But you take your time. And again, especially when you're practicing on your own, feel free to pause the video or do whatever that you need to settle into a deep state of rest here. In this class context, we're always constrained by this 90-minute time period. But I want to make sure that you take as much time as you need to get all of the medicine that you can from this practice. And if you have questions, feel free to ask them. A reminder that as you sit, you want to find a way to sit so that as you soften open and downward and your body drapes, that the weight falls through the body to the ground. The result of that is a sense of being lifted, The more you let go, the more you're held up. Not in a magical way, it's a very natural way. So it's possible to sit here and feel more relaxed sitting than you do lying down in bed. You want to find a way to let that travel through. And it happens through letting go, not through holding on. So if you find yourself holding, you're going the wrong direction. Tea.
While we're waiting for other questions,
Mhm.
ZhiCheng Shifu recommends softening the elbows and smiling. When you find yourself feeling really tense or stressed or anxious, I wonder if you have other recommendations or.
Good question. Good point to make. And please let me know if you're not able to hear Mel through this microphone. We're still figuring out our sound setup, this fancy microphone. The idea is that smiling, for instance, eases the qi. There's this sense of opening and relaxation that happens as you smile. And not the kind of smile that you're baring your teeth at yourself in the mirror, but by releasing and allowing a smile, this happy Buddha smile, your system naturally starts to release. And part of what we do in our practice is recognizing that some of our feelings are generated from the outside in. They're not always generated from our thoughts or from our hormones. Sometimes they're generated through our structure and our posture. It is possible to breathe or hold our bodies in such a way that it generates a panic attack, even if there's no reason to be panicked. There's a possible way to engage your muscles and your nervous system in such a way that you always feel frustrated and you don't know why. And it's simply because of how we are in our bodies. Our facial structure, the way we hold our face, has been shown to change how our neurochemistry is functioning. So there's an argument to be said about faking it until you making it. But what we want to do is not try to force a smile, but to allow a smile, a gentle one. It doesn't have to be huge. But this quality of easing open changes the qi in your whole body and helps you relax. And in the same way, if you find tension in your shoulders, notice the hanging and the settling of your elbows, relaxing here. By softening this, all of this starts to release. And again, these are quotes from our instructor, Master ZhiCheng. And if you find any usefulness from this set, please do feel free to send him a donation or just a note of thanks, because all of this comes from him, and we're just grateful to get the chance to study these things. His skill is unbelievable.
You want to mention his URL?
Daoist with a T, Daoist Studies Institute.org. Mel's going to put it into the chat. But it's in every comment section. And I think the doobly-doo down below these massage series, I have it in 2 separate places, maybe 3. And it's because we want to support him as well. He's so generous and kind. And if you have the chance to study with him, I highly recommend it. It's very worthwhile. I am but a pale shadow. And it doesn't look like we have other questions coming in. I'll wait just another moment. If you like, with me, you can soften in gentle circles, softening from this connection down below, releasing your neck.
Chris says, so many useful tips and advice. Thanks so much.
Good.
I hope the great man makes a guest appearance one day.
That seems unlikely. He is shy. He barely makes a guest appearance on his own website because he has the whole invisible Daoist thing going on. But if you can find him, and maybe I should announce as well, and I'll say it more times as the period comes up, at the end of this month, February 10th, is the Chinese New Year, the year of the dragon. The wood dragon is coming. And I believe on that day is a Saturday, probably in the evening, we'll be having a celebration that will be online. And it will be through this same Daoist Studies Institute. And so we'll probably be in town. And if you want to watch, you can see him throw me around all over the place. It's a lot of fun for me. He does the look, I barely touch John and flip him upside down thing. And so if you feel like watching those antics, or you can hear some music being played or other performances as a general celebration, you're welcome to join us online. It's always free. Thank you all so much. Oh, Anna says thank you. Thank you, Anna, for joining us. For all of you over there where it's late at night, I appreciate you staying up. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your practice.